Ladies and gentlemen, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. First off, I just want to say the audio may sound a little bit different today. If you caught yesterday's video, you'll know I am still working on redoing my office, so my soundproofing is not all set up and ready yet, but hopefully it won't be too noticeable for the time being. Anyways, this past week was the first sort of downtime that we've had in Modern Warfare and Warzone since Season 3 launched. You know, we didn't see a huge update go live, nor were there any substantial things announced, previewed, teased, or anything like that. Well, that is until today, where we got a pretty big preview of something that's going to give Warzone even more attention, and alongside that, I figured we would also talk about various other changes and updates that we know will be coming to Warzone in the future. And this is info that we've either gathered through leaks and data mined files, or through Infinity Ward and Raven themselves. So if you enjoy the video at any point, let me know by dropping a like on it. And of course, if you are new to the channel, we are always covering the latest Call of Duty news, intel, updates, leaks, and just about everything else in between. So feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on to stay up to date with all things of that nature. So getting right into what sort of sparked all of this, one of the most highly requested features in all of Warzone right now is of course Battle Royale duos. So far we've seen the game launch with trios as the standard, then we saw solos added into the mix, and more recently we saw quads put into the game as well. But we are approaching that month-and-a-half mark and we haven't seen any sign of duos, at least in-game as of now. Of course, if you do keep up with the channel, we've talked about how duos was actually teased on the Call of Duty website for a brief period of time before it was ultimately taken down, and we also saw Battle Royale duos appear in the game files for Season 3 as well. And outside of some other files that we'll be talking about a bit later on into the video, everything from those update files has appeared in-game, from the new weapons to the new maps and whatnot. So really, we have no reason to believe that duos won't be coming soon. And to further that even more, this past week we actually, of all things, saw plunder duos added into the game, and I don't know, to me, Infinity Ward and Raven and Activision have definitely seen the outcry for Battle Royale duos. So I think what they're doing here is basically teasing that it is coming soon, I would guess sometime in the next few weeks, and maybe at the latest, the mid-season update in a few weeks' time. Because if Plunder Duos is here, everyone on the menu is going to see that and say, hey, wait a minute, where exactly is Battle Royale Duos, right? And that just sparks the hype even more for that mode, I guess you could say. So first things first, because I know I get a ton of comments about it every single day, yes, duos for Battle Royale is coming. No, we don't know when exactly, but I would say pretty soon considering the update to Plunder. Now, outside of that, we also have a few things that were touched on either by Raven employees or Infinity Ward employees that are honestly going to be pretty substantial when they are implemented into the game. So initially here, Amos Hodge, who is the creative director for Raven Software, recently said over on Twitter that a big change will be coming to the money drop rate to sort of help with the loadout prices in each mode, at least from my understanding, because as it stands right now, obviously the price is a little skewed towards quads. It currently takes 10,000 cash to buy a loadout drop, and when you have 4 people on a team all looting and gearing up, that comes out to, on average, 2,500 cash per person, and that is no tough task at all. Whereas over in solos, 10,000 cash, unless you either land and there's just a ton of chests, or you get really lucky with the actual chest loot, that's not something you're going to get in any sort of fast fashion. You know, that is definitely going to take a hot minute to rack up all that cash. So Skull originally tweeted at Amos and said, could you adjust the price of the loadouts in solos? 10k just does not work. And to this, Amos replied saying, we would like to keep the prices consistent. That way players won't have to memorize a bunch of different prices. We are looking into adjusting the drop rate of money based on the player counts instead. So going off of this, it seems like the loadouts aren't going to be what's changing at all, and instead it is going to be how much money you would get based on the amount of players left in the game. So presumably, the longer you survive and the less people there are in a game, the more cash you would find out of a stash, at least that's how I would see it, which means it would be harder to get a loadout drop earlier on into the game, but if you can still find crates to loot near the end of the match, you would get a decent chunk of change out of those. Personally, I'm not too sure how I feel about this. Honestly, I don't think memorizing loadout prices in 3 or 4 modes is all that bad. If it were, say, 5,000 cash in solos, 6,500 in duos, 8,000 in trios, and 10,000 in quads, and it just stayed like that, I don't feel that would be all that complicated. But regardless, it does seem we could have some big changes coming to the amount of money you get at any point during a match. Now, we also have a pretty big update coming to the game itself. Personally, I think this is probably the biggest piece of info that we've gotten about Warzone since it launched. And while we already sort of knew something like this was planned, we didn't know the specifics, I guess you could say. But we now have a much better understanding of what we can expect when it comes to the live in-game events that'll be taking place later on down the road. So this information comes from an interview that Taylor Kurosaki, the narrative director for IW, did with VentureBeat. And I'll link this full interview in the description below because honestly there is a lot of pretty cool stuff discussed all throughout it. But right at the very end of this interview, VentureBeat said, "There are things you could do with this world. I think of things that Fortnite has done, like the eclipse they had for a couple of days." And to this, Taylor responded with, "That is exactly the kind of thing we're working on, that we already have planned. Again, it's all going to fit into this macro that we've established in the game and that we've continued into Warzone. If you know who the players in the game are, it'll all make sense and it'll feel appropriate to the universe." So basically, what Taylor is getting at here is that we are going to be getting some live in-game events, similar to those that we've seen in Fortnite, where the action and the event itself is taking place literally right in front of you in-game, and that somehow these events will tie into the greater story taking place within the full game. Obviously, we had the campaign and that was fantastic, and then we had Spec Ops, which sort of continues the story. Then we have these seasons as well, which also add on to the story with the little intro cinematics. So these events will play into that some more, and as Taylor mentioned, they're planned to be in a similar style to those that we saw in Fortnite. And if that is the case, I would assume they'll have some pretty important changes associated with them, like changes to the map primarily. That seems like it would go sort of hand in hand together with a larger event. And honestly, the only downside to all of this is that we have literally no idea when these events will actually take place. Presumably there is going to be more than one of them to prolong the lifespan of the game, and honestly, I was kind of hoping we'd see something larger than just some new modes introduced with the launch of Season 3, but seeing as Warzone launched in the middle of Season 2, it's sort of understandable that we didn't. But now, I think we are really in the time where really anything could happen. We know that we'll have a larger mid-season update with the new Master Camo and Frankensmithing and whatnot, so maybe it's going to come alongside that. Maybe it's just going to happen on a random day of the week on a week of their choosing. Truly, we've got no idea, but we are definitely going to have to keep our eyes peeled here. Anyways, as I mentioned earlier, we do also have some other new modes that were leaked via the in-game files that will be coming to the game at some point in the future. And although none of these were listed on the in-season roadmap for Season 3, my stance is basically neither was Plunder Duos, and that sort of came out of nowhere. So honestly, I think these all stand an equal chance of releasing on any given week. So here we see that we have Battle Royale Duos once again, just to sort of reiterate that it is in fact coming. We have Battle Royale High Action, which is a mode where the gas actually closes in a little bit faster, and presumably the loot is going to be better than normal too. We have Battle Royale One Shot, which is one-shot headshots, and you won't be able to use any loadout drops in that mode. We have Realism Battle Royale, which presumably is also one-shot headshots, and it won't have the usual HUD. And then we also have Hardcore Battle Royale, which would be no HUD and also lowered health. And maybe armor wouldn't sponge as much in that mode either. Honestly, only time will tell for that. But yeah, we do have a handful of other modes all set to launch here in the near future, in addition to everything else we talked about today. So with all of that being said, those are effectively the big updates and changes that we know are coming soon for Warzone, and that is going to wrap things up for today. If you guys enjoyed the video, let me know by dropping a like on it. And of course, if you are new here and you want to stay up to date with the latest Call of Duty news, intel, updates, leaks, and everything in between, feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on. That way you'll always know when I upload a new video. As always, if you want to check out any of my partners, be sure to use code IMMORTAL on all scuff, G Fuel, Control Freak, and Respawn products. All of those links can be found in the description below, and once again, thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.